the rad is a unit for radiation, absorbed radiation dose. You've probably heard of this unit before in everything from popular culture to the Fallout series and the Fallout video games and all that stuff, which we did a video on previously on This Week on Because Science. But how good are humans at dealing with rads? Well, a rad is 0.01 joules deposited in something like our fleshy bodies per kilogram of fleshy body. So that would be, that's how rads work. So 0.001 is about the amount that a dental x-ray, number of rads a dental x-ray would give you. And that's obviously fine. We can give those to a number of people a couple of times a year, and it doesn't increase cancer risk or anything like that, so that's fine. Get up near 100 rads, though, 10,000 times larger, and you're still okay. I'm talking about an acute dose. Someone just zapped you with 100 rads in a second or something like that. It'd be bad. It would probably increase your cancer risk over your lifetime, but it wouldn't be instant death. We'll get to that. 500 rads, and suddenly for humans you get around the LD50, or the lowest dose that would kill 50% of people who receive that dose. For humans, that is just 500 rads. Double that, which kind of makes sense, and you get into the LD100. 100% of people, or practically 100% of people who get 1,000 rads, 1 kilo rad, will die within a few hours or a few days, depending on their unique physiology. Get around 50,000 rads, though, and you are depositing enough energy in joules per unit mass of person that you are causing instant cell death. You are wreaking molecular havoc. This radiation is smashing into your DNA and other machinery. It's coagulating proteins. It can lead to the instant death of a cell. Needless to say, before this, you're pretty much toast. But here, you're definitely not making it. But in terms of radioactive resistance, humans are not that great. The LD50 for humans is 500. The LD50 for cockroaches, as you may suspect, is much higher. That's where you get that story that they'd survive a nuclear apocalypse, because it is 6,500 rads, so much larger than 500. But they're not even the best. There is an archaea. It's a kind of organism, and it's an extremophile because it can, before it dies, to a lethal dose of radiation, it can withstand, just because of how its cells are structured and set up and how the organism has evolved, it can withstand 3 million rads before anything bad happens to it. And I think that's fairly impressive. There we go. Hello and welcome to another edition of Because Science Live, the live edition of this channel where I take all your comments and questions and corrections and I try to address them off the top of my head to the best of my ability. If I don't know something, I will tell you. But consider me your nerdy conduit to the rest of everything. Hey, I'm not an expert, I'm not a working scientist, but I know a little bit about a lot of stuff, and maybe I can point you in the right direction. Or not. Look at these numbers. That's a pretty good start. I have Nate here somewhere.
Yeah, I'm here.
What?
I'm here.
Okay. Let's start. What you got for me?
From Matterbeam.
Oh, hello, Matterbeam.
There's nothing more Fallout-like than the Orion nuclear propulsion system that also uses small nukes. Could we ever need it?
Interesting. So, if y'all have never heard of Project Orion, it's a crazy idea for a rocket that can go really, really fast. Most rockets that you are probably familiar with use some form of chemical propulsion. So they use fuel, and they burn that fuel, and the fuel creates equal and opposite reaction as it explodes out of the back of the rocket, and the rocket goes up. Project Orion was like, nah, we're going to step that up. So instead of using chemical propellant, they wanted to harness the power of nuclear explosions themselves. So if you had a Project Orion rocket, this is a completely accurate and to scale drawing, of course. This would be the Project Orion rocket, and at the end of it, there wouldn't be like a traditional place where all the thrust would come out, where all the burning flames that you would see. Instead, it was more like this. A plate. just a plate. And the idea that Project Orion had that was so kind of bonkers was that, instead of burning up fuel, why don't we drop nuclear bombs behind our ship and we explode them after we pass that area and have all of the shock wave and force from that explosion push our ship upwards towards the stars. And this was a real design that real, very important scientists were working on. And it's very interesting because you don't think of throwing bombs out behind you to give you thrust, but that's exactly what would happen. Now, to Matterbeam's question, would we ever need something like this? I think you know the answer to this, Matterbeam, but thank you for asking me anyway. Why would we need a rocket like this? Well, because nuclear power, fusion and fission and nuclear bombs and stuff like that, they just provide per unit mass a lot more oomph than our chemical fuels can. So our chemical fuels are pretty dang good, relatively speaking, but you need a lot of mass to produce the same amount of thrust that something like nuclear power could. And there's, I think I said this on a previous live, but the promise of like nuclear fusion power is that the amount of energy you could get out of a bottle of water, if you fused everything in that bottle of water in like a nuclear fusion plant, it would be as much energy in that bottle of water as an entire train car's worth of coal and the train. An incredible reduction in weight or mass that you would have. So Project Orion kind of gets at that using a much more efficient fuel source. Not as efficient as something like antimatter, but it's close. Not close. It's in between. So why would we need something like this? Why can't chemical rockets just do the job? Well, if we're ever going to get beyond our solar system and to the nearest star, say, which is a few light years away, we're going to need to be able to go really, really, really fast, or create a generation ship and have generations and generations and generations of humans on it, because space is so big. At our current thrust capabilities, it would take thousands of years to get to the nearest star. Project Orion, on the other hand, because it's using nuclear bombs, which is ridiculous but cool, I've seen two designs. One that could get humans, a crew, throwing nuclear bombs out the back, accelerating less than 1G for 100 years to Alpha Centauri in 1,000 years. So you could do a generation ship with many people living on the ship and only their descendants getting to the star and then exploring it. That'd be cool. I've seen another design where it is accelerating under 1G of thrust, 1G, which is what you're feeling as your weight right now, for 10 days, and it could get to Alpha Centauri in 130 years. Almost one human lifetime, probably two. So think about that. In 2 human lifetimes, you could get to the nearest star light years away. That's the promise of something like Project Orion. Now, this was canceled. I'm not a historian, but one of the big problems was that exploding nuclear bombs in the atmosphere is bad. You have fallout, you have EMP, you have other dangers. What if you missed? What if this went wrong? What if someone stole your cache of weaponry? It's a whole lot of bad. But it was a very, very interesting and very cool design, and Matterbeam. That's why you would need something like that. I think principally you would need something like this to get anywhere you're going not slow. What's next?
From Thomas Shewan. Hello, I'm 16, and my dream is to join NASA or the Australian Space Agency.
Hey, good for you, man.
But I'm not sure how to. What should I do to be able to join these agencies so I have a chance to change the world with science?
Well, I think your quest is admirable, and first of all, let me say that no matter what you want to do, if you are passionate, if you study hard, if you're really, really committed to doing what you want to do, I believe that you can do it. Of course, there's cases of your socioeconomic status and who you are and where you live, but I think that if you stay passionate and committed, you can do whatever you want. That being said, you can look up the requirements to be an astronaut. I think NASA just had a job posting last year or a few months ago where they listed the requirements. And from those requirements, you could start planning your path. Many astronauts will have a lot of hours in in flight, like test flight. So a lot of them are pilots. So a lot of them will go into the Air Force or, along that route, aeronautics. So, and a lot of them will have advanced degrees as well, master's degrees and doctorates. So if you wanted to be an astronaut, your path to being an astronaut is probably through engineering, through something like the military, or through something like becoming a flight surgeon or a doctor or something like that, and then tapering your interests towards what you want to do. So you're going through engineering. Okay, what kind of engineer do I want to be? Maybe aerospace and aeronautics, and then get into the industry, start working for a place like Boeing or something like that, or Lockheed Martin or some other place that contracts with NASA or your relevant space agency, and then get your foot in the door. There's no course, as far as I know, there's no course that says, take this course, this is NASA 101. No, if you really want to do that, you will go to college or university, as I think you call it, university, looking for those courses and those requirements that will help you apply to a space agency. Engineering, science, advanced degrees, doctorates, that kind of thing. Space is hard, and if you got a liberal arts degree, for example, a PhD in English literature, probably decreases your chances of being an astronaut quite a bit. So I would suggest looking into the requirements and then thinking about your path through university and how you can steer that towards the stars. Yes. I think that sounded pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Thank you. What's next?
From Gradius Gaming.
Ooh.
What would it take to liquefy a human being?
Oh, goodness. Why? I get a lot of questions where I'm like, what are you going to do? XKCD got that once. In XKCD's wonderful book, What If, there's a bunch of sections where he gets questions, Randall Munroe gets questions, and he refuses to answer them. One was, how fast would a human have to run at a cheese cutting wire to cut themselves in half? And he was like, no. And I have a similar thing to your question. So it depends on what you mean by liquefy a person. And usually when we have sci-fi things, we pick some pop culture element and we try to fit towards that, right? Liquefying, if it's more Fallout-y, because we did a Fallout video this week, like gooifying him, like if you hit an enemy with a plasma rifle, I'm not so sure. You would want to break a lot of the bonds in their bodies so that it's not, the cellular matrices and stuff that are in the skin, so it becomes more goo than it does tissue, and then they could be gooey. I don't know how you would do that specifically, or if you want a brute force method, you could kind of pick another pop culture thing and say, let's do a Breaking Bad style situation and get a tub that can handle it, a tub full of hydrofluoric acid, and then put a body in that, and that should do the trick. Not nearly as quickly as you will probably want it to, you weirdo, but the human tissue will break down under the load of that many hydrogen ions, which is what an acid is. What's next? It's basic chemistry knowledge. Ooh, hydrogen. I'm sorry, what's next?
From Christina B.
Hello, Christina.
What's your favorite animal, and what is your favorite thing about science?
Double question. First one, actually, it's not a no-brainer. First one, what's my favorite animal? Well, I thought it was the Gaboon pit viper before, and I even created a very important account with a very important password, and the password clue was, what is the coolest snake? ? And I was certain I knew what I meant. The Gaboon pit viper, obviously. But it wasn't that, and now I'm locked out of that account forever. Anyway, the Gaboon pit viper, it has the longest fangs of any snake. I think it injects more venom per weight of any snake. It has Vanta black, like that blacker than black style scales on its back that's nano-level engineered to absorb the most sunlight that breaks up its outline on the forest floor, and it's almost invisible, and they're kind of short and heavy, and they're big scaly boys. Oh, and they're beautiful. They got this little horn on their nose. Wonderful animals. My second favorite animal would have to be, and if you've never seen it at an aquarium or never seen it online, please look up the flamboyant cuttlefish. They're intelligent, tiny little cuttlefish that have, like the name suggests, flamboyant colorations of yellows and purples, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And they have these slits in their eyes that make them look very otherworldly yet relatable. And they walk along the surface of the sand sometimes with their tentacles, so it makes it look like they're ambulatory and they're walking. And they can change their coloration and the structure of their cells, so they can it's like 3D camouflage. It's very, very cool. What was the second question? What do I like about science? I think the accessibility of science is really important, because there's a lot of fields. There's a lot of fields where you can't just get into it. But for something like science, just observing the world and writing it down in a methodical, careful way is research. I mean, I have friends that go to the Amazon and just take pictures of spiders they've never seen, and they can publish papers on it and be entomologists, and they're just doing what they love. I love that. Science can just be, you're lucky if you do what you love, but I feel like with science, if you just love something, some aspect of the universe, you can get so invested in it that you can make an inroad and discover something that no one's ever discovered before. I've heard it put, I forget where I read it, but when people were talking to scientists, I'm not a working scientist, but when people were talking to working scientists about what they really love, and I like this description a lot, is that for a brief moment, when you're a scientist and you've discovered something that you could publish a paper on or what have you, for a brief moment before you publish that paper or finding, before the world knows about it, you are probably the only person, the only human in the universe that knows what you know, and you're about to share it with everyone. And that feeling is incredibly cathartic and powerful. And anyone can do science. It doesn't matter who you are, when you're born, who you're born to. As long as you're following the same methods, you can come to the same conclusions. And you could change the world, literally. That's what I like about it. Also, it lets me think about cool snakes. What's next?
From Bobby Delalio.
Ooh.
Hey, smart boy Kyle.
Oh, hello.
How do rockets and thrusters work in relation to Newton's third law? It's just expelling air with that much force?
I think you mean third law, sorry. Yeah. So equal and opposite reactions, right? So this is, I've gone through this kind of before, but for anyone who isn't familiar with my take on it, when you have a rocket, so special effects aren't working at the moment. So when you have a rocket, I think it's a common misconception that it is pushing off of the ground. And it only takes a few minutes for you to kind of dispel yourself of that. Well, then how do rockets work in space? There's no ground. So what rockets are really doing is they're ejecting mass. And if you throw mass away from you at some velocity, because momentum is conserved and equal and opposite, forces exist in pairs, equal and opposite forces. If you throw something like fuel away from you with some force, it will provide an equal and opposite force on you. And in a rocket's case, you are using combustion and chemical energy to throw some mass, like the exhaust itself and stuff, away from you. And when it does that, it provides a force on you, and so you go in the other direction that you're pushing. So rockets push off of themselves, kind of. They don't need the ground or anything like that. That's why they work in space. They create a reaction inside of themselves, throwing mass out one direction, going the other direction. Equal and opposite forces, conservation of momentum, and space is one of the perfect ways to see that, because there's no ever-present force in one direction like gravity when you're on the surface of a planet that can kind of make that look weird. In space, you can see the purest form of that kind of reaction. What's next?
From Wyatt Rose. Did you go trick-or-treating?
I didn't. I was dreading someone finding me in here. I did have candy, though. It was from Japan. It was very nice. But no one found me, so no one got it. What's next?
From Jared Schiff. Hi, Kyle. My 5-year-old Max wants to know, how hot is lava? Is lava hotter than fire?
Hello, Max. Hello, Max, if you're listening. Lava. Oh, what's the temperature of a campfire? I don't know offhand. I think it's like 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Whatever. So what I will say is lava is really, really, really hot, Max. Woo! Woo! It's hot. It's like 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. If you want to cook a pizza, you can get, you only need a few hundred degrees, 300, 400, 500 degrees for a few minutes, and you can cook a pizza. Now imagine putting a pizza on lava. I am right now. How long would that take? Oh no, I nerd sniped myself. How long would it take to cook a pizza on lava? Anyway, Max, lava is so hot. It is many, many, many times hotter than your oven. It can be hotter than fire. I don't know if it's like hotter than a campfire specifically, but lava is so hot that if you were to put your foot on top of it, the rubber on the bottom of your shoe would just start burning. Good question. Very hot. Maybe someday you can grow up and ask one of your parents to take you to like Hawaii so you can see lava in person. If you've watched any documentaries about lava or volcanoes, it's amazing to look at. Just molten earth coming out. Raw power. You're 5. You know what I mean. What's next?
From Spencer O'Dowd.
Oh, hello.
What would life on a planet with rings be like? What would standing on the ring shadow look like?
What? What would life on a planet with rings be like? I don't know. I mean, aside from the obvious, right? I mean, the rings would cast a shadow on the surface of the planet. And in that shadow, the planet would be cooler, and weather conditions might be different, and it depends on how the planet is spinning. So, a whole society might grow up incorporating the shadow of rings into their everyday lives. Like, oh, every day at 2 and 4, it gets a little bit chillier here, and they build like cultural customs around that, and seeing rings in the sky as it shifts. It's like another wanderer in the sky, like the sun wanders across the sky. It's an illusion, of course. They're spinning, but. It's another thing, and it would change the culture and in a really interesting way, I think. And so, standing in the ring shadow, it would be colder. During last year's total eclipse, I forget the temperature now, but during last year's total eclipse, when you're in the path of totality, where the eclipse was total. If you're standing in the shadow, it was noticeably colder, a few degrees Celsius colder. And it got weirder than that. When it passed over bees, all the bees stopped buzzing. The shadow. It'd be weird. So maybe there'd be some weird ecological behavior because of the rings on that planet as well. That'd be really interesting too. Sounds like a lot of fun world building, and it depends on how big the rings are and how far away they are from the planet. Because that would determine how big they are in the sky. They would be bigger than the moon probably and look beautiful. I think a YouTube channel called Yeti Dynamics has a video with the Earth with with planetary like rings around it. I'm rambling. I think it'd be absolutely beautiful and cool, and I'd stand in the shadows the whole time because I like it chilly. What's next? I don't know why I said that.
From Vance, 1982.
Ooh.
If you could go to any object in the solar system to explore it, what would it be and why?
Any object in the solar system. I've heard, going back to the NASA question, I've heard people from NASA get really, really excited about Europa and wanting to get underneath the ice to see if there is any life there. And it's as good a chance as anything in the solar system, if not better. Well, no, I mean, what I said is totally wrong. It has a much better chance than a lot of other places to have life, so that would be really, really interesting to go on a Ernest Shackleton-like expedition into to Europa and embrace the freezing weathers of Europa and bring your icebreakers, and then have your ship get crushed in the ice, and you have to go back in essentially a rowboat, and you look like a Yeti by the time you get back to a whaling station, and you scare some 12-year-old children. I'm describing what happened to Ernest Shackleton. Sorry, I've been listening to a lot of hardcore history. I'd want to go to Europa. I want to see if there's life. Because if there is life, aside from us in the universe, it would be the most important and most terrifying and most exhilarating discovery in the history of ever. Our ever. Not the universe's ever. The universe doesn't care. But ours. What's next?
From Dragonbane 508.
Ooh, it sounds like a good magic card. Is Dragonbane a magic? Enchanter's Bane is a magic card. Banefire is a magic card. Anyway, sorry.
If you were tasked with running a moon base, how would you handle resources, water, food, morale, etc.?
What's my day-to-day handling of a moon base? Sounds like a very complicated question that I would take a long time to answer. The promise of something like a moon base is that some of the resources will be there, right? I mean, you'll have to ship some from somewhere, Earth. But for like essential resources like water, you might be able to mine water from underneath the surface regolith of the moon and in craters of the moon where there's craters on the moon that are in, because of how the moon is facing the sun, in perpetual shadow. There are shadows in craters on the moon that have never been, well, as far as we know, as long as we've been around, never been illuminated. And so they stay perpetually frozen at a crazy low temperature. And so if there's ice there, we can go there and we can mine it and we can get water by heating it up, obviously. We might be able to make fuel on the moon by using that water and cracking it and getting hydrogen and oxygen and making rocket fuel from all that. But for food, we need to bring some kind of seed food there and then try to get some kind of biosphere going. Not terraforming the planet because it doesn't hold an atmosphere. But domes and such, and you could live underground if you wanted to. And how would I deal with morale? Every day at 600 UTC, we would go out and see how far we can throw golf balls. And the guy who throws it the furthest gets to, or woman who gets to throw it the furthest, then gets a flash drive containing all the recent films on Earth, sponsored by AMC. Yeah? Oh, are we done?
Sure, yeah.
Oh, thank you for watching another edition of Because Science Live, where my markers work perfectly and stuff. Thank you for joining us the whole week on this channel for the live stream and for the vlog. All of you who commented, I notice a lot of you, and I do read your comments as much as I can, so keep it coming. And for all of you who watched the recent mini nuke episode, please do. I work with Bethesda on it, and they were really cool about it. They were excited about the science, which excites me. And join me next week for another vlog, another live stream. I have a special something coming up for all of you soon. I can't tell you what it is just yet, but it's special extra content, and you're going to like it quite a bit. So have a wonderful weekend. Follow Because Science on @BecauseScience on social media and send me ideas for your episodes and tell me how you're liking it. And be nice to each other, because this is all we got.